Today, my guest on the number is Bryan Clayton. He is the CEO of GreenPal, and he is in the landscaping sector, which is a really fascinating because my brother used to have a landscape company, so I find this a fascinating area. And he's been very successful. Number one, as a providing technical services, and then building a platform for other landscapers. So I feel like this is awesome. So welcome to the show, Bryan.
Wendy, thanks for having me on. It's great to be here.
So excited. And as you know, we're going to talk about a number. Let's tease it a little bit first, though, Bryan. What's your number we're going to talk about today?
The number is a good round 10. 10 is the magic
Woohoo!
number.
I love the number 10. But let's go back to the beginning a little bit and let's talk about Peachtree, which was when you were owned a landscaping company. Tell me about the journey of building that to a successful exit, which is not easy in that space.
It doesn't happen very often in the landscaping industry. It wasn't my plan when I started the business. I just started mowing grass in high school as a way to make cash, and I
Yep.
stuck with that lawn mowing business. A lot of people tell me, "Oh, my first business was a lawn mowing business," and the same for me. I just kind of stuck with it, and
Yep.
little by little grew that business from just me and a push mower to me and a helper, and eventually got it to 150 people after about 15 years.
150. Holy cow.
150, yeah. 90, we had 90 trucks going out every day all over Nashville, Tennessee, where I live, and it was like organized chaos every day, and eventually getting it over 8 figures a year in revenue, and it was acquired by a national company that runs these kinds of businesses all over the country. So that was a heck of a journey, learning how to grow that business little by little and scaling it along the way.
And it's so hard too, because it seems like it might be a bit of a commodified business in the
Totally.
sense of
Yeah.
like there's not a lot of barrier to entry.
Yeah. And it's hard to differentiate yourself from your competitors. That was something that I realized in maybe year 5 or 6 of the business, was that I wasn't in the landscaping business at all. I was actually in the sales business, and I had to figure out a way to differentiate what my landscaping company did from everybody else in the market. And it took me a while, but I what I landed on is I would start with whatever my customers' goals were. So, for instance, like McDonald's, we ultimately
Oh.
did like 100 McDonald's locations, and what we would pitch them on is like, hey, we feel like with our services we can help you drive more same store sales, and we can help you drive extra value meal upgrades with a clean drive through and flat and seasonal color and the entryways. And we just really changed the way we talk to our customers in that business, and that was our value proposition. And so that kind of helped us differentiate ourselves in a commoditized business.
That's amazing. And even thinking about it from the client point of view, it wasn't just about planting some plants. It was like,
Right.
how am I helping you with your business by doing this type of activity? What a
Totally.
different way of looking at it.
I think if you can try to put yourself in your customer's shoes and help them get to where they're trying to go, and how you fit into that and how you can help them get there, it really changes the conversation from are you the cheapest bid to are you a partner?
Mm.
And that's how we grew that company to 8 figures in revenue.
I love that word partner for sure. So let's talk a bit about the exit, Bryan, if we can. We talk a lot about that with our clients because we have a lot of entrepreneur clients, and we're like, you may not be in the market to sell, but we should probably be thinking about getting you ready so that if something comes along and makes you an offer, that you're ready. What
Oh,
was the
totally.
biggest learning lesson through that exit process? So was it an unsolicited offer or did you go to
So
market?
it was not one that I had planned on doing. I did not build that business to sell. And to your
Yeah.
point, like you mentioned, talking to your clients about this, you should intentionally be working a 5 or 10 year plan. If
Yeah.
if an ultimately an acquisition is your end goal, you should work backwards from that. I did not. I built a lifestyle business,
Ah.
and I think it was like year 13 or 14 that I plateaued from a personal development standpoint. I wasn't being challenged by the business anymore. And I didn't realize it, but like that was a lot of my source of fulfillment, was that I was growing alongside the
Mm.
company's growth. And I became discontent running the company, and I
Fell
decided,
out of
okay,
love with your business?
I kind of, I didn't fall out of love with it, but I no longer got the fulfillment from
Mm.
running it, you know,
It wasn't
and
as fun anymore. You'd been there, done that. You proved you could do it.
Exactly. And it wasn't like I conquered the world or anything, but in my little world of landscaping maintenance in Nashville, Tennessee, I'd kind of reached the mountaintop. And so it was time to create the space for the next act
Mm,
of my entrepreneurial journey. And
yeah,
so from the moment I had that idea, like, okay, maybe I could sell this company, to the time I actually got it sold was a little over 2 years, because I
yeah.
had to reverse engineer a lot of things into the business,
Hmm.
almost take the business down to the studs and
Right?
rebuild it in a way that so it could be acquired. So ideally, you work a proactive plan. There's a great book called Built to Sell that talks about this.
Yeah,
I really like that book. I wish I had it back, in
yeah.
2012 when I sold my company, but the author hadn't written it yet.
Isn't that funny? So I actually, some of the work I do is built on that as well. I'm part of their ecosystem. So
Nice,
that's really
nice,
good. And
great book.
what was your biggest surprise and biggest lesson of going through that sales process?
Yeah, the biggest lesson that nobody tells you about is that every decision you make as a business operator, if you want to sell your business, is going to cost you by like five, six, or seven, whatever like the multiple is in your
Yeah.
business. So what I mean by that is a lot of decisions I made running that company that were from the heart,
Mm,
because I took pride in running the company, and so maybe we would paint the fence at the shop every year because it looked nice. Didn't necessarily need it, but I want my shop to look good, and I don't want it to look. I want it to look top notch, and so maybe we would buy our employees the name brand best uniforms money can buy because they're family, and I want them to have the best that there is, and it's what I would want to wear, and so I buy them the uniforms that are double the cost, but are more comfortable, and then about 1,000 other decisions just like that. And if
mm,
you were running the business from like a spreadsheet, almost as if you never saw it, like it was in another state somewhere, it was
mhm.
almost like you owned a stock.
Yes.
That's how you have to run a business that you ultimately plan on selling, because every one of those kind of sort of discretionary expenses that you take on cost you at the sale
Yes.
times five, six, or seven.
Right on. Yeah. And
Yeah,
that's why I appreciate the fact that you made that effort for 2 years to kind of rebuild what you could in the
totally.
sense of making it sellable, which is, I think, a fantastic attitude. All right, so day one, you've got your check. How long before you started something else?
Yeah, it was not the plan really to start another company because I was worn out after
Mm,
building and then selling that business. It was very much
it's a
like,
process, man.
yeah, and trying to run the company and grow it, because you really got to run it tip top while you're
Yep.
going through the process. Your numbers can't go down. So,
Nope.
so not only are you running the business to the best of your ability and growing it, making it prosper, but you're also doing this other sales process and going through due diligence at the same time,
It's like having
trying to
two
keep
full-time
everybody.
jobs.
Yeah, it really is. It was 7 days a week, sometimes 100-hour weeks, and I was just burnt out after I sold the company. And so I thought I was gonna like just live this life of like an investor.
Yeah.
In the book, Robert Kiyosaki wrote a book called The Cash Flow Quadrant, and in that book,
Yeah.
he talks about this mysterious individual called the capitalist. And this person, like what they do is they're in the middle of deals, and whether it be real estate or business deals, and like they just put money to work, and they're the arbiter of all of these things going on, and like, but they're not actually like rolling up their sleeves ever, and like,
Yeah.
man, that sounds cool. I want to do that, and so I like did that for like a year, and it got really boring really quick. There was no longer a reason to get out of bed early in the morning. There was
Mm,
no longer the answer to the question, if it wasn't for me, then what? There wasn't a team that depended on me. There wasn't customers that cared about, what it is we were doing. And so I thought, well, I need to start another company. What could I
that's right.
do? And so I decided, okay, well, I know the lawn care space, but I don't really want to start another landscaping company. I couldn't because I
Yeah,
was
you
under
probably had some sort
non-compete.
of contractual
Yeah,
piece not to do that. Yep.
totally. But I could start a tech platform, and so I
Mm,
thought, well, maybe I could build the Uber for lawn care. Uber was just getting rolling at the
yeah.
time, and I thought maybe I could build an app where homeowners could order lawn mowing services, because I saw this problem when I was running my landscaping company, that that homeowners had a tough time connecting with smaller operators. And so I thought, yeah, a technology platform could make all this run a lot simpler. And so I set out to build that, right, and told a couple of friends about it. They said, well, hey, I'll do that company with you. And so there was three of us, and we just went off and working on the idea that an app should exist where you push a button, someone comes and mows your yard. We called it GreenPal, and now 10 years later, it's an overnight success.
Ooh, you said the number 10. Well, let's go there, Bryan, because that's our number today. Tell me about the number 10 and why that's significant to you.
Yeah, I know when I was building GreenPal, like you would read the tech press and you would read the business press, and it just seemed like you were surrounded by these overnight successes.
Hmm.
And like I remember like Snapchat came out of nowhere and turned down like $5 billion from Zuckerberg in an acquisition, and I'm like, damn, I didn't even heard of that app a year ago. And then you really start like digging into it and like actually no, Snapchat, was founded like 5 years before that. And before that, the founder, Even Spiegel, he had like four other failed startups. And then he had another startup before that he sold for $1 million or something. And it's like what you're looking at is like the end result of usually 10 years of work. And that's kind of how it unfolded for me with GreenPal. It was really about year 10 that could I sit back and say, wow, okay, now this is working. We're making money, we're putting money to work, paying ourselves a good salary, and I can call this a success. And so it was like the idea of the 10-year overnight success. And I think probably every success you see is the product of at least 7 years, maybe 10 years. There are no overnight successes.
Right. I think that's a misconception on that side. What had to be true for you to feel that had hit that success mark? What was true?
It was no longer, it was a shift from being like in it to on it. And what I mean by that is it's
Yeah.
like as a business owner, ideally you grow yourself into a position where you get to wear the hat of a capital allocator. And so money's coming in and you are putting money back out to work. And so it wasn't until me as the founder, as the CEO, where that was really what I did every day was, okay, we got money coming in. Okay, now how am I going to put this money back out to work? What bets am I going to make with this little bit of money that we have? Am I going to hire another developer? Am I going to hire this agency I was looking at? Am I going to hire a better designer? Am I going to hire another content writer or a little bit of all of the above? And it's like you are making these little bets with the capital you have, and rather than like me writing the code, me writing the blog post, me pitching the journalists, I was now putting money to work and delegating those things and moving faster and with higher leverage.
You're amplifying your results there. It's interesting when you talk about capital allocation, the word that comes up to my mind is an opportunity filter. It's like
Totally.
I have these three or four things I could send all my money over to. Which ones are going to get me closest to my end goal faster?
Totally. Yeah. And it's like the life of a founder is not like chess. It's like poker. It's so in chess,
Oh,
you see all the pieces on the board in chess, and you kind of know what's on the table. In
if I
poker,
do
you
this
don't know.
gambit, he's probably going to do this
That's
versus,
right.
yeah,
And you're just making little bets, and you're trying to lean into bets, trying to double down where it makes sense. And
yeah.
and that's really what starting a business is like, especially when you're starting to work with your own capital. It's like, okay, let me fire bullets at this and then fire a cannonball at it. And it's really what I was starting to do. I started to make little experiments, little bets, and then started doubling down on what was working in the business.
How did you maintain your focus and your belief for a 10-year period? Because that's a long time.
Yeah, there is a fine line between there's a fine line between like tenacity and just the ability to just like grit and
Yeah.
then delusion. So there's a fine line between those
Yeah.
two things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you got to really like define that in your head. What does perseverance look like, and what does delusion look like? Because it's very easy to waste a decade on a bad idea, and you're just constantly pushing on the string. So I was paranoid of that. I knew it was going to take a while, and I had made a decision. I think managing your own personal psychology is really important when you're starting a business, and And so for me, I had made a decision when I sold my other company. I tried to retire. I thought, okay, I'm just going to work on my best idea from here on out. And I'm just going to work as really hard as I can on my best idea. And fortunately, I'm not terribly creative. I've had one good idea in a decade, and this is it: Uber for lawn care. That
Ooh, thank
green
God it
pal.
worked.
That's the only idea. No FOMO, no FOMO at all, because I didn't have any of those other ideas.
Right.
So that helped. And then what I did was to try to figure out if I was in delusion land or perseverance land. Was I would set really small goals that were tied to the one metric that mattered for us. And so for us, that one metric that mattered then and now is the number of transactions per week occurring on the platform.
Okay.
And these days it's in the hundreds of thousands. Back then, we just wanted 100 people to transact in a week.
Yeah.
That was like an active metric that I could look at. And I knew if I could get 100 credit cards, 100 people using it and transacting a lawn mowing service per week, that I had something, and nothing else mattered until I got to that point. And so we really focused all of our firepower on, okay, we got 10. Now let's get to 20. Now let's get to 50. Now it literally took like over a year to get to the 100. But
That's really
we
about
got,
like, it sounds a little bit like it's like your minimum viable product or proof of
that's it.
concept number was 100.
That's it. That's it. Yeah. It was like minimum viable product was like maybe 10, and then 100 was like minimal viable business. Like, can you get people to use this thing? Is there a business? Because I knew that if I got to 100, I knew I could get to 1,000. And if I could get to 1,000, I could get to 10. And I just knew that if we could just keep doubling that number, eventually we would have a real business. And so long as that number was moving, I felt like I wasn't in delusion land.
And you were moving in the right direction. We when the number 10 comes up, I think a lot about some of the books that are out there about scaling and 10 times is better than two times, Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan. How do you relate to that number 10 in that concept? That 10 times is better than two times.
Yeah, I have found that it is just as hard to do something small as it is big. And it's
Ooh,
like, it's
yeah.
just, I mean, even when it comes to business, it's like the founder who's running the convenience store, one location, is working just as hard as me running a platform with hundreds of thousands of people using it every day. And it's like, neither one of us is working harder or less hard than the other. And so I think if you're gonna, whether you're working in the business or you're picking a new business to start, like, it's just as hard to start $1 million business as it is a $10 million business, as probably as it is $100 million business. And so
Mhm.
I think you might as well go big. You might as well go 10x, because it's all the same. It's all going to be challenging.
Did the actions you had to take, so 1 year to get to 100, how long did it take you to then multiply that by 10 and get to the 1,000? Did you
Yeah.
start to see a shortening of the time frames when you were doing your 10 timesing?
I would like to tell you that we hit this big inflection point where life just became easy, but we didn't. It was a slow grind all the way up to where we are now. And while the numbers got bigger and compounding started to take place, there was not this hockey stick moment where we look back and say, "Oh, because we just did that one thing." That
Yes.
in that way, it is like chess. There is in chess, there's not one move that wins the game on the chessboard. It is a
Hmm.
slow buildup of compounding good decisions that finally get to a point of victory. And that's how it was with us with GreenPal. The first, the first year was 100, and then I think it took another 2 years to get to 1,000, and
Wow.
then it
Yep.
took another 2 years after that to get to 5,000. It wasn't until maybe year 10 did we start to see the numbers get big and get profitable and get to a point where we could pay ourselves a market salary. And it took a long time. If we had capital, we probably, like, knowing what I know now, if I had raised capital, I could have done it quicker.
Yeah.
But if I went back and you gave me capital, I just would have wasted it all, and I wouldn't have ever had a business. And so it's a weird dichotomy, raising money. And so And so I don't know that I would do it any other way than we did it, but it was a slog in the early days.
And it really does talk to patience and having a mindset around the 10 years for overnight success could possibly take that pressure off of I have to do it all and I have to do it now because it doesn't seem like in this world today everyone wants immediate gratification and to hit the big numbers right away. Like I feel
Totally.
like society has really gone that way.
It really has, and that's permeated all the way into founder culture, and you see it a
Yeah.
lot where, particularly now with AI, you see these AI companies come out of nowhere with billion-dollar valuations, and again, those founders were grinding on something 10 years ago before
Yep.
nobody was talking about AI, and so I think no matter what you're doing, whether you're starting the corner store or you want to start an AI product or platform like mine, don't embark on anything that you're not willing to spend the next decade of your life and weekends on, because that's how long it's going to take.
Something that just popped into my mind is in the tech world, I find that people pivot a lot. The founders, as they learn more information about their audience or about their market or about everything, there's a lot of pivoting. Were there any big pivots for you, Brian, in the growth of GreenPal?
Yeah, I think that like the pivot sometimes gives license to founders to not have to do the hard work,
Ooh,
because they get into a business and they realize it's going to be a slog, and they realize like we pitched 100 journalists a day for years just to get as begging them to write about us, and dozens of other like grindy things like that. And I think the pivot gives the founder like license in their brain to like not do that stuff that sucks, and because it just wasn't like it wasn't an overnight success, and it just didn't, like, the market didn't grab it. And so I was always leery and skeptical of the idea of a pivot. And I really just I knew this idea would work because I saw it work in analog in my landscaping company. I knew it would work. I just knew that it was just going to take some time. And so what we do today is the same thing that we were doing 10, 12, 13 years ago. It is like, how do we make ordering a lawn mowing service as easy as a DoorDash, as an Instacart, as an Uber? How do we make it faster, cheaper, smoother, more reliable? And more importantly, like lawn care companies, how do we enable them to make 6 figures, 7 figures on our platform? How do we give
right.
them a livelihood? That's the same vision we had when we started. So we never did a big pivot. Now, the vision hasn't changed. The way that we got there is like literally climbing a mountain and zigging and zagging. That has changed a lot, but the vision didn't change at all.
Well, it strikes me as that you had deep industry and client knowledge from the get-go because of your years in Peachtree, right? So like you already knew a lot. It's not like you came in, I have an idea to automate this industry, now I must go learn it. It's you started there. I feel like, have you ever heard of the concept of a byproduct? Like, I think that if you look at GreenPal, it's almost like it was a byproduct of the work you did with Peachtree.
Totally.
Is there any
Solving my
by
own problem.
yeah. Are there any other problems or byproducts that you see in the future for you guys?
Yeah, so to your point, that was the only thing we had going for us was that I had 15 years of industry knowledge. So I knew how
Right.
the industry worked from the inside out, and I knew kind of what the mechanics of it were, and how technology could make it run smoother. Now, on the other side, I had never built a software product. I had never built a web page. I had never done anything in that
Yep.
realm. And so I had to learn all of that. That took like several years. And so I don't know if I would recommend that. Like ideally you'd have somebody on the team that is technical, and then maybe you could bring the domain experience. I do think it can be helpful to solve your own problem, but I don't think it's necessary. Like Travis Kalanick, the founder of Uber, he never drove a taxi.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of examples of outsiders, innovating in established industries. But I think it can be helpful to be solving your own problem and making it a natural byproduct of what you're doing. And byproducts of what we do today at GreenPal, I would like to say the main byproduct that's going to come out of us in the next year or two is implementing AI inside of the lawn care business where
Okay.
it does not exist. And so all of the things that suck about running a lawn mowing business and all of the things that stink about hiring a lawn mowing business, we are using AI to solve all of those little challenges. And so I think that's going to be something new that we are going to bring to the marketplace because we started this platform that connects buyers and sellers in this world of landscaping maintenance.
That's amazing. I really can't wait to see where you go with this, Bryan. What is, so that's what's next. Your biggest lesson on this big journey you've been on. If you were sitting talking to a brand new entrepreneur, someone who's been in the slog, they're in the middle of the slog. They know that they're on the perseverance versus the delusion. What's your biggest message to that entrepreneur?
Yeah, it's you have to get to a point of like default alive. And so what I mean by that is no matter what, you're going to survive. And a lot of what success is just the consistency and sticking around and
Mm,
staying in the game long enough to where you grind your way through the plateaus and the ups and downs. And you can't do that unless you're default alive. And so what I mean by that is like you're making more money than you're spending. And
right.
you're not relying on investor capital and you're not relying on lines of credit or credit card debt. You are default alive. No matter what, next year you will be here. It may not be fun, but you'll be here. You'll stay in the game.
Yeah.
That's my biggest piece of advice is like stay in the game, hold yourself accountable to one number and just do everything you can to move that number. And then if you can't move the number for 2 years, it might be time to do a pivot or to close up shop and try something else. Don't waste a decade on a bad idea because then you're in the delusion land. And so that would be my advice. Stay in the game as long as possible.
Bryan, this has been an amazingly great conversation. Thank you for sharing your nuggets of wisdom and your number 10.
Thank you, Wendy. Thanks for having me on. It's a lot of fun.